I'm Jim Collison, live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on June 8th, 2018. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you have questions during this webcast, we do have a live chat room that's available for you right below the main video window. If you just peek down there, easy to log into, bottom left-hand corner, choose login, choose the guest account, put your name in where it says guest, hit submit, you're in. We'll be taking live questions during the webcast. If you have questions afterwards or you're listening to the recorded version, we'd love to have those from you as well. You can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com, or there's a contact form right there on the live page. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com for all your CliftonStrengths coaches, resources, and training needs. You can also catch the video in both streaming and downloadable audio. We call that podcasting, a great way to consume these podcasts when you're on the road, on a train, on a plane, those kinds of things. The way to do that is right off our coaches blog. So go to coaching.gallup.com, click on the resources tab, scroll down to where it says podcasting, and every way known to man is out there available for you to get that done. Well, one more thing. Don't forget, if you're listening to this on your iPhone, you can rate and review. We'd appreciate if you do that. Subscribe right there. It's all right there on the phone. If you're listening through YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you get notified every time we go live. That just happened to me. I went live and it told me we did. It's a great way to keep up with everything we're doing. And if you're listening on Spreaker, of course, you can subscribe or follow us over there as well. Tracy McCausland is our guest today. Tracy's the founder of Follow Your Strengths and is passionate about improving employee engagement levels within organizations and helping individuals live their legacy. Diagnosed with breast cancer at age 39 last May. Tracy, doesn't seem like it was just last May, but she took a strengths-based approach to her journey and hopes to help other patients and caregivers do the same. Tracy, welcome to Call to Coach.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for the invitation and for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. It doesn't seem like it was just last May. So a year ago, May, right?
Yeah.
We've gone through a lot with that. You're looking great, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
No, you are looking great. For those who don't know you, let's spend a little time getting to know you, and we're going to spend a little bit more time walking through your journey. But everybody wants to know your top 5. So let's start with the introduction.
Okay, great. My top 5 are individualization, harmony, maximizer, learner, and belief.
And what do you lead with? That we don't ask that very much, but of those 5, what do you think you lead with? And I'll let you pick 2 if you want to do it that way.
Oh, is that what people like to do? I'd say probably individualization and maximizer probably show up the most, but it's tough to kind of unravel all of those, right? We aren't just 1 or 2, but see them show up differently depending on what I'm doing, and definitely have some examples of battling breast cancer and how they showed up too, a little different than my everyday day job.
Yeah. My wife, if you're a Theme Thursday listener, you know, my wife has belief in her top 10.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about how that showed up, because as we talk about your journey, I think that's going to be great. So a little bit of a teaser. Let's talk about your journey to coaching though first, before we dive into that. Give us, before May of last year, you're on a coaching journey. Give us a little bit of background. How'd you come to that? What are you doing? What kind of things have you been working with? That kind of stuff.
Sure. So I'm based in Waterloo, Iowa, which is Eastern Iowa. We've lived here about 8 years, and my background is in HR, and I have a master's in counseling psych from the University of Kansas. So hi, Cheryl, I hear you're on. But I focused in my grad school program on career and vocation. So I really wanted my work going forward. I was only 24 or something. I didn't know what I was going to do after I finished that master's degree, but back then I said I want to help people be happier at work. And now I know engagement is more than just being happy. But in those days of just reading and kind of studying what that looks like, all things pointed to Gallup, right? And so much research and data and studies out there, by Gallup over the years. And so I finished my master's degree, did a little recruiting, and then spent about 4 years at Accenture in talent and organization performance, it was called back then, in Kansas City. And then when we decided to move to Iowa, with Accenture, I wasn't going to sign up to get on a plane every single week here from a little bit of a smaller town airport. So that kind of led me to, find my way here locally and really piece together a few things. And so I've taught for John Deere for about 7 years, just as a contractor. And then when I saw Gallup open the doors that you could go and become certified and, and learn more about strengths and then go deliver this, I thought, well, that seems like what I've been, been kind of on this track to do for 15 years without, I guess, intentionally knowing it. So I went through the training in March of 2014. I was so blessed to have learned from Kurt Leesfeld and Heather Wright. And then, there were people in the room that were like doing this full time. And I thought, well, I want to do this full time. And so today my focus really is on strengths workshops and training sessions, and then also using Q12 around engagement. 90% of my work does come from leading team sessions and workshops, and then about probably 10% on coaching, mostly with career and transition. And then I get some referrals every now and then from my hometown of Iowa Falls of students that have finished college, but then haven't quite found that sweet spot a few years out. And I love that work too, but that's just kind of a smaller part of what I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's a huge need, by the way, in that space of college students. We're hearing a lot about that, those kinds of opportunities. And so good for you. I imagine you're enjoying that. What kind of successes are you seeing? Are those students getting redirected and finding jobs? And how's that working?
Yeah, it's been fun to see. And part of it, why I do enjoy it. I mean, one, I think I just like that one-on-one, with individualization and maximizer. It's a pretty good fit for coaching. But two, I can empathize with it because that's really what led me kind of down this path. I mean, I majored in HR at the University of Iowa, and then my first job out of college was as an IT consultant. Ha ha, don't laugh, Jim. That was what I did. And I was at a great company in Kansas City. Honestly, great company, great people, just the wrong seat on the bus, so to speak. So I think, even though I'm 40 now, right, I'm not straight out of college, I can still empathize because I know that, those few years for me, even at a great company with great people and great processes, just, if you're not playing to your A game, every day, that can be exhausting and draining. And so I think that makes it fun, just kind of that ability to empathize and say, hey, you're fine. You can redirect, right the ship, and it might take some trial and error and trying some things, but yeah, it's going well. And then just having had an HR background, I mean, I've seen thousands of resumes and sat through hundreds of interviews, so I can kind of bring that flavor of it in too.
Yeah, it's a great age. I think we need a lot more of that going on for that. We see those in our Facebook groups all the time. And coaches trying to help out that college age. It's a hard spot because there's no money there. Really, right? And they're
right.
not, it's just they got tons of student debt and they're just searching for stuff. And so good for you. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate that. We work with high school and college students here at Gallup, and it's just such a great age to work with. So I appreciate it. All right, let's not bury the lead. We want to talk a little bit about, you've had an interesting journey over the last 2 years. In thinking about, being diagnosed with cancer, with breast cancer, and all that went along with it. And you and I have spent a bunch of time kind of talking behind the scenes a little bit about your journey. Can you back us up? And your life was all planned out, and you're coaching and a family, and you got kids, and you're rolling through this thing, and life is looking bright. And then this happens. Tell us the story a little bit, just to bring people up to speed.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, life was looking bright. It's still bright today, but yeah, I mean, certainly hit the skids a little a year ago and some change. So, I guess my personal journey was just I found a lump kind of up in my chest area. And, it's kind of weird, Jim, how, sometimes you feel a little off or something, you've got a ache or a pain, and then you hop on Google and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to die, or, Google can scare you. And I guess it didn't feel right, but I didn't think, oh, I probably have breast cancer, So I found it on a Friday. I waited a couple of days. I know I was out of town for work on early that following week. And I ended up getting in on a Thursday, and the PA was like, gosh, I walked in with your chart and I didn't think this was going to be anything. And I'm actually kind of concerned. Let's see if we can get you in for a mammogram across the hall. And they were booked that day. But so I had to, wait one day. And that was a little nerve wracking. And I went in on a Friday and it was my first ever mammogram. I'm 40 now, but last May I was 39 and they're not really recommended until you're 40 unless you have a reason, family history wise. And so I did that. And then we did the ultrasound and, it took a while. So, as I was laying there, just the more that she kind of was doing, I thought this is not probably good. And then from there, she kind of talked us through it. I've got a little bit of a strength story from my husband I can share in a bit, but and she said, we're going to go ahead and do some biopsies. And this clinic here locally was just amazing. I don't know if they have I've joked, is there a code word or some type of a signal they do? Because man, everybody was just phenomenal for me. I was there for 2 full hours and, it was pretty clear the results were not going to be good. We had to wait over Mother's Day weekend to find out for sure. So we found out that following Monday, that I for sure had breast cancer.
Yeah. And so initial thoughts, what goes through, there's some time, there's some delay you're thinking through. What are you thinking? How'd you process this?
Yeah. So it was really interesting, talking about from a strengths lens, that day of the appointments, my husband, he's working hard. We're both, living full lives, I would say. And he's like, should I come with you on this appointment? And I'm like, I guess if they tell me I have cancer, I kind of want you to be there, and we both kind of laughed and he did. He canceled some appointments and he was there. And my husband has analytical as his number one theme. He has harmony and he has consistency. I tell people he kind of runs like this, like his pants would have to be on fire to get too excited about things, but just real steady Eddie. And, as Dr. Meg, the radiologist, was doing the ultrasound, she said, come on up here. I can talk you through things. And, she told us what she was seeing. And then, Kent, again, with that analytical, he said, so Dr. Meg, you've seen hundreds of these, and given Tracy's age and everything, what percentage are we looking at here that she has cancer? And this was a pretty defining moment on the journey, but she put both of her hands on me, right here and here. And she's like, I want to be honest. I know you came here for, an honest opinion, and I'm 95% certain. And she's like, I pray that it's benign. And this is a Catholic type organization, but, I'm pretty certain. And, for a doctor to say 95%, I thought it's probably 195%. Right. So, it was just interesting to me right away from a strengths coach perspective. I thought, if he hadn't asked that question, I think all weekend I might have been like, well, did you see that one person and how they looked? And did, trying to get a gut check as you dwell on it all weekend and wait for results, which 3 days is a long time to wait to see if you have cancer or not. And, but the fact that Kent I felt like stepped up with his strengths. He asked the perfect question. And in a sense, we knew. And then we could get kind of that ball rolling in terms of kind of talking with people. And, we've got a lot of people here, great support system, and having people in our court. And it was just a pretty cool strengths story, really, on, hour one.
Yeah. So walk me through yourself as you're thinking through your own lens. I mentioned belief, which I think is going to play an important part in this, right? But walk me through as you're starting to think about this, because crisis mode, we really want to emphasize this is using strengths in crisis, right?
Yeah.
When it hits the fan and all things are bad, how do we handle things? And we filter the good and the bad through these themes that we have, right? So it's day one, you're in crisis mode, you're beginning to think, oh my gosh, and you really don't know how bad it is just yet. But walk me through how you start thinking through your themes and what's in play at this point. How are you coping with this, thinking about your themes?
Yeah. I mean, I think just, those first couple of days, I mean, people are, huge for me in terms of friends and family and support system. So I knew for me, the decision was going to be, I got to have them in my corner. I know people want to be in your corner if you're fighting a serious illness. And, for some people, they're very private and, don't want the attention or just don't want to share. But for me, it was just kind of instantly, I knew that would be part of it. But that Monday, Jim, I went and taught at ACT in Iowa City. So I know Friday they were like, well, we can go through your results on Monday. What time would you like to come in? And I'm sure most people are like 5 a.m. You want to know as soon as you can. But not that I had an attitude like I'm busy that day, but I said, well, I'm teaching that morning and I'm doing that. And, I can be here about 4:00. And so kind of just carried on with doing what I was going to do anyway, and got great support, from an awesome client that day. But I think you're dead on kind of with leading me into belief, because that one was there from the get-go. And so we went back at 4:00 and it really was just confirmation, validation. Yes, it's stage 2B. They started getting into the intricacies of the diagnosis. And on the way home from the hospital, which is only about a 5-minute drive from where we live, I said to my husband, well, do you want to pull into Sunnyside, which is the golf course nearby? I can sign up for the pink ribbon committee. I just found out I had cancer. And he was like, just relax. And then he kind of joked and he turned to me and he goes, you're going to MC it. And it was just kind of that moment of like, okay, I don't have to do that this summer, right? But I think we both kind of knew. We didn't know what it was going to look like or how I could help, but we knew that we would, do something, I guess, for others. And then early on, I had people saying things to me, kind of validating that. One of my best friends and neighbors, she said, you're going to start a nonprofit. I can just see it. And I thought, start a nonprofit? I don't want to. That sounds really hard. Like, I'll do something, but I don't want to stretch myself that hard, right? So, we kind of talk about, staying in your strength zone and what's natural and what's easy and what tends to fit. So I knew, and there's a lot of things, honestly, with cancer already out there. I wasn't going to reinvent the wheel, but that belief tugged on me. That first, I'd say 7 to 10 days was actually really, really hard for me. And I think belief is really about, mission and purpose and serving others. And I did not question God early on. I did not sit around like, why me? But I felt like an internal struggle of like, well, what would you have me to do with this? Mm-hmm. How can I use this? So, I think that belief was just kind of showed up right away. And about a week or 10 days in, then I had a little more clarity. But.
Yeah, it's a great story. There are definitely certain personalities, and I appreciate this, that you get into a crisis moment and you're immediately thinking, okay, how am I going to use this? Like not a moment of, oh man, this is going to be terrible, or am I going to make it through? But I've had two scares with prostate cancer over the last 2 years, and each time it's crazy. Each time it's come, we thought about it. That the very first thought was, "Oh, this is going to make an interesting story. Like, how can we turn this into something better than it is? Because the situation's terrible, right? We're gonna talk a little bit about what you go through, and I think for folks who've been through cancer, have gone through chemo, we know it's just an awful, awful experience. I don't want to minimize that in any way, but it's great to hear too. Like immediately you begin to think, how can I use this for others? How can I turn this into something? How can I turn this into a story? What else in the process? You talked about family. You talked a little bit about your husband. In those weeks, how long did it take for them to start doing chemo? And in those weeks between there, do you have some conscious thoughts of like, how am I going to use these talents that I have to get through this thing? Can you talk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was diagnosed officially May 15th and I started chemo May 31st. So, not long. I had my first oncology appointment in Iowa City on a Wednesday. And then, you're really anxious to get going, right? I had 3 tumors inside of me, 2 in my breast, 1 in my lymph node. So it's like, let's move this thing, right? Let's get them out. But then at the same time, when she said, okay, you'll start chemo next Wednesday, I was like, oh, that's soon. And she said, it would have been Monday, but it's Memorial Day, I mean, they run a lot of people through chemo, on a daily basis there, and obviously around the globe. But, so we got it started pretty soon. And in my case, we did the chemotherapy. I had 16 rounds of chemo, started, end of May and went through mid-October. And then followed that in November with surgery. But yeah, I mean, kind of my story I shared with you, Jim, as far as when did I start thinking about like, how can I use my talents and thinking about this from a strengths-based approach? I really did have that struggle early on of, okay, I'm comfortable medically with what's happening, but what am I doing with this? And I'm sitting actually just across from where I am now in my office here, and my bookcase, like many of the other coaches and strengths practitioners, all have our Gallup books. And I'm sitting there in my chair, and I kind of turned and looked at my bookcase, which is over here, and I see, strengths-based leadership, of course, StrengthsFinder 2.0. I see parenting with your strengths, strengths-based selling, living your strengths, teach with your strengths. And I'm thinking, where is the book telling me how I'm surviving with my strengths? Where is the book telling me how I can be me, as I go through the next 6 months and kind of do it on my terms and what's authentic to me? Where is that book? And I didn't see it. So honestly, in that moment, I was like, that's what I'm supposed to do, or that's what I can do to help others. And it's not that far of a leap. I'm already engrossed in the strengths community and the strengths world. And that's my day job, if you will. I'm out here, leading workshops every week and listening to you often, Jim, and your webcast. I thought, what if I started thinking about how people with different talents would attack cancer? So that gave me some calm. And I don't know exactly, it was like day 7 to 10, but about a week and a half in, and it gave me some calm, and that's what I'm, proceeding to do.
Yeah. When you think as you think about that, just give us a sneak peek. So, and we're going to give some more details as we go through this, but what do you think you've learned? If you think about your top 5, how is each one of those, or maybe 2 or 3 of them, how have you deployed those throughout this process?
Yeah, I think, I've got individualization and harmony, and then empathy is 6 for me. So I was very aware early that people wanted to help. And, it was devastating. Obviously, it was only 39 and just not something we were expecting. And, and I made the choice to let them help and bring them along for the ride, if you will. So I think, those 3 kind of combined. I could feel others, and I made it really a priority for me to meet with people, have lunches, coffees, people would stop by the house, went on walks with a couple girlfriends, and, very rarely did I cancel. And I did have to cancel a couple of times, but, that I knew was important to them, and it makes me feel good through the lens of my talents when people are comfortable and, kind of that peacemaker of harmony coming through. This picture you've got up now, this was kind of fun one. And I would call this maximizer and arranger in motion. Arranger 7 for me. I knew people wanted to come, and I was like, saddle up, let's do it. And this was my farewell to hair party. And so we had, probably about 30 of us there at the local salon. Sadiqa cuts my hair and my father-in-law's hair, and she has for years. And I asked her if we could have this party, and we had bagels and mimosas and fruit and just had a great time of it. You could see some teary eyes in the crowd. Of course, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to give a sad toast, but no, I didn't try to make it sad, but
Well, it's hard. I mean, you're going through a difficult thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough, but that was neat. So there's a place in Florida called Chemo Diva, and my hair it was fairly long. I'd say like to about here. And I found this place you can cut your hair before chemo takes it and send it to Florida, and they give you instructions. And my sister's actually right behind me there, the blonde. She donated some of her hair as well. So she cut 7 inches off, and then they made a wig for me. They call it a halo wig. So it would be just kind of a wig that goes here, but it was my hair. And then I wore, ball caps or cowgirl hat, that type of thing I could wear over my own hair all summer and fall. So, I've kind of said to people, I knew chemo was going to take my hair, but I kept it. So
right. That's amazing. I did not know they could do that.
I didn't know that either.
That's fantastic. And
so that was neat.
What's the significance of the purple shirts, and what does it say on there?
Yeah. And so it's just kind of, purple has always been my favorite color. It's my mom's, hence I guess I have a little purple behind me too in my office as I look, but, one of my great close friends, Megan, that lives here locally, God bless her heart. Her father had just passed away. It was, within a week or two. And she's the one that takes it upon herself to, coordinate and making these shirts. And she had a handful. And then I know they did a little reorder of some, but she knew purple was my favorite color. And then, the hashtag's big out there. And so they just did #strength. And I think dual meaning, when people are diagnosed with cancer, oftentimes they're told like, be strong, or you're strong, you've got this. And I think the strength play, though, I can't help but think it also has something to do with the strengths movement and the work that we're doing around CliftonStrengths and my job.
How important were those around you, and knowing, I'm certainly some of those helping you out, you knew kind of their talents and what they were good at. And did you find yourself kind of leaning on those talents in those times?
I did. And I know that's super dorky, but it's like, well, if that's, I think with individualization, number one for me, that's just kind of always how I've been, is seeing people as unique and, not, and knowing. That's something that hit me too early, Jim. People were saying to me, make this journey your own and do it your way. And you don't have to do it the same way other people would do it. And, some people take friends to chemo and others want to go alone. Or some people put this on Facebook, others don't tell a soul. And it was great advice. And I was so obviously tired and kind of overwhelmed in those early stages. I was taking all advice. And then it kind of hit me. I was like, no crap, right? That's what I'm out teaching all the time in organizations, is you're all sitting in the same meeting and people are processing information differently, right? Or if you're a manager and you're leading teams, you might have 7 directs that report to you. You say the same thing to 7 different people. They're all going to take it and process it differently based on their talents. Parenting is no exception, right? I got a 9-year-old I feel like is pretty similar to me. He's got some things. And then a 5-year-old going, what? Where'd this come from? Right. So we all, we're certainly unique, even if we work at the same place or have the same parents. And so that was something I did kind of, it is a little dorky, but I knew, just even at that haircut party, I put one of my good girlfriends, she's a wooer and got some arranger talent. She's great with hosting. And I said, you get the mimosas. She said, how can I help? I said, you bring the mimosas and you're bartending, and another girlfriend has some talent similar to me with individualization, maximizer, and arranger. She offered to put together a chemo carpool. She offered to coordinate my schedule in terms of who would give me my rides, which was amazing for her to offer. But in my head, I thought, I would kind of like doing that. So I'll keep that, I'll keep that on my plate. But we talked more and she was like, well, gosh, even if some of us could help you write thank yous. And I said, done. because I just know myself well enough, things that are sequential and take a lot of steps. And they're honestly things for me, I feel like are boring. Before cancer, I always said laundry and mail were the two worst things that are so boring to me. But when Liz, my friend, said, maybe we could help you with thank yous, I said, done. And so, 4 close friends came over. I got sushi. We had some, of course, I offered them wine. And they thought, one of my friends, she said, oh, I'm bringing the thesaurus. Like she was going to have fun with it. I was like, oh, no, you're not, because I have typed out exactly what you are writing. So they thought that was a little bit overkill. And maybe that was a little my maximizer coming into play, is I still kind of orchestrated what was going to be said. I just had about 100 to write. And so to have that help from my friends and also to kind of deploy them where I knew they could be great was kind of cool too.
No, that is great. I want to bring up a picture because we've been talking a lot about the people around you, but this picture gets pretty serious because this is about you, right? And this is this isn't too difficult, is it, for me to show this? Okay,
no,
this is you now as you're thinking about this going into your body and you're thinking about how to deploy talent to yourself and your well-being. Right? Because that's really what we're doing here. We're keeping you healthy through all this process. Walk me through a little bit of your, this is a long journey. It's 16. Is that what you said? 16 treatments like this? Walk me through that a little bit.
Yep. So what you're looking at there is AC, chemo. And the women straight up call it red devil, which, I mean, as if getting a cancer diagnosis for me last year wasn't bad enough. And then, within a week, I hear the words red devil. I'm like, oh, that sounds just amazing. Right. And we went to the first one it was my parents and my husband, Kent, and Kent said, how about we call it fruit punch? He has positivity as number 6 for him. So he was certainly a rock. It's not that high for me, but so I did 4 rounds, I guess if you will, of this red devil. So, and those were every 2 weeks. And they're brutal. I mean, the fatigue with this was just unbelievable. And then after that, I did rounds 5 through 16. So 12 more rounds was what they call Taxol chemo. And that was weekly. So if red devil is kind of that knockout punch, then Taxol is just kind of like body shot. Like it wasn't as difficult or, fatiguing, but yet when you're into month 3, 4, 5, your body's still just wearing down. So, so that's a little bit about the chemo side of it.
Yeah. What about, so as you're thinking through, you get through 4 weeks and it's really hard. And then you're going into that maintenance, which is getting progressively harder because you're not recovering each week. When you think about you yourself and how you approached your own physical well-being, were there things as you were thinking through, hey, I've got these talents, were there ways you were able to kind of deploy that to kind of help in that process?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think one, belief was there, boom, early on, like we've talked about. But I think I keep coming back to learner. And, I'm a teacher's kid. My parents are both retired high school teachers, but their first job out of college, they both took jobs in Iowa Falls. And they dated, I think, before it was like allowable to date at work. Isn't that funny? I think they actually got called into the principal's office, like, you can't date each other. But anyway, they got married. 35 years, they both had the same job, right? And so I'm a teacher's kid. Learner, is there for me in my top 5. I've always been inquisitive, mostly about people. For me, it really has kind of always been that psychology side and about people. But, certainly Kurt Leesville would talk about kind of a narrowing, some people with learner, it's that broad variety. And for some, it's a bit more narrowed and focused. And that's kind of how I think it has been for me. But, learner just was very much there for me, or I guess I could say I intentionally used it because I obviously as a strengths coach are, trying to encourage people to not only be aware of what you've got, but actually use them, right, for success and performance. So, To be honest, that first day driving home from the hospital, when we were joking about the pink ribbon tournament, I texted one of my girlfriends, Sarah, and I said, send me Sarah, another Sarah's phone number, because there was somebody here locally who I had met once, but I really did not know her well. And she had breast cancer twice. So at 36 and 41, her mother passed away at 46 from cancer. And as hard as it was, to reach out to Sarah, I did that again, in 5 minutes on the way home. And that was that learner right there of saying, I know I'm going to talk to my mom tonight. I know I'm going to talk to my sister. I'm going to text. Our bedroom, I was in bed with Kleenex. It was like what is it called? Like a crisis center, but what would you say? Kind of like this command center.
Command center, yeah, I think that's
my husband's out communicating to his crew and family, and I'm telling my high school girlfriends and my college girlfriends, and just kind of getting the message out. But before I did that, I went to an expert. I was like, I will text all of you who are going to be freaking out and clueless like me. I'll talk to you later tonight, but right now I want to talk to an expert, if you will. And Sarah has traveled that now twice. And she agreed to talk with me, and it was 45 minutes, and it was probably to date maybe the worst I've cried, because she's living it. And she was down in Iowa City at Hope Lodge going through radiation every single day and still working. And, I've dubbed her, she's definitely a new great friend of mine now. She was in that hair cutting picture. She didn't have a whole lot of hair then, but she is, now a great friend for me. But she was kind of my cancer mentor. So I use Learner there. I was inquisitive with my oncologist and just asked a lot of questions about diet, and talk about physical well-being. And she referred me to an integrative doctor, a holistic doctor. And that was awesome. I loved it. It was, an hour appointment, but I took page of notes and just, that was really, really good for me. And also in July, so it was probably around the summit time, to be honest, right before the summit last year. I met with a clinical psychologist who specializes in oncology. So most of his patients are going through cancer or have gone through it. And about that time, I'd gotten through like the first couple chemos, and then I started hearing more and more about how this does not always, obviously doesn't end well for everyone, but breast cancer comes back a lot for women. And that fear really started to kind of become entrenched in me of, oh my gosh, I might get through all of this chemo, have surgery in November and get it again. What? Like, that wasn't what I was thinking, the first week when we had our plan. So, you get, when you're sitting in a doctor's office and you hear percentages thrown around in terms of your survival rates and chances of cancer coming back, that can be a lot to take in. So, talking with my oncologist, who was awesome, and there we go. And she referred me to that psychologist too. So, I attribute that to Learner though as well. And my first meeting with him was great. And then the second one, about halfway through, I said to him, so tell me about writing a book, because he's written a textbook. And so by the end of that second meeting, he's like, I think you're good. Email me if you need anything. But it was a good gut check, a good opportunity to run my fears by obviously someone trained to know how to have those conversations.
Tracy, by July, you're joining us here at the summit, which is not the most probable story for people. Like, hey, I was just diagnosed Memorial Day. It's now mid-July, and here it is. Tell us a little bit about the summit experience. Why did you come? And this is not a shameless plug for the summit, but you were here. Like, why? Yeah, why?
Yeah, so that's interesting, Jim. And it was around my fourth of those AC Red Devil treatments. So it was pretty tough at that point. They say FOMO, fear of missing out. It's like, I think I registered for it in October, or whenever the first week you open your registration. And I thought, I can't not be there, but can I be there? Like, is that acceptable? Is that super dorky and weird that I still want to go to this conference? And, it just was actually having lunch with some colleagues, and a couple of the guys said, you could stay home, just rest, just take care of yourself this weekend, blah, blah. And then kind of a butt kicker around town, mentor type. She's just incredible, does great work here for a foundation. She goes, I think you should go. And I was like, yes, I'm going, and just kind of saying if Stacy would go, then I'm going. And that was kind of cool. But what I will put the little asterisk in there, I got a ride to the summit from Ashley Lang as a Gallup certified strengths coach at Wartburg College, which is not far from here. And I thought, I wonder if Ashley's going to email her. And she picked me up and, we drove to Omaha. I slept a good 2 hours on the way there. And on the way home, I slept most of the way. So, I did have a chauffeur and I was super tired, but it was great to be there. I felt pretty terrible. But I tell you, Tom Rath's keynote alone for me was 30 minutes that he spoke, and to hear just someone that's been diagnosed with cancer at, I believe he said 17, and then has, 6 New York Times bestsellers and, has just done incredible work around strengths and the strengths movement. I know so many people were inspired by his keynote that day. And I was sitting in the crowd, bald with chemo, rolling through my veins. So I've told people, just that drive or just that keynote alone was just kind of a real cool boost for me and thinking about, well-being and keep on keeping on.
Yeah, no, I think it was moving for everyone that was there. And just one of those moments that hits, but certainly it was one 30-minute moment. How was having a community around you that's hyper-focused on strengths and talking about talent and talking about all these things? Did that have any effect on you being here in a group of really, really supportive people? I mean, I remember seeing you there and I was like, holy cow, why? Why are you here, Tracy? Was the question that went through my head. I didn't get a chance to talk to you, I don't think, while you were here. But how was the community around you? Was that helpful?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was honestly amazing. I remember there was a class that I wanted to attend on the back end of the summit. And I remember back when we were still using Yammer, I think I put something out there. Is it too late to register? And then, Dean Jones got looped in and I said, I'm going to be hitting the skids with chemo. I'm not feeling the greatest. But then I saw, at the opening reception, Dean was there and was just so nice. And I don't know what I was thinking, like I could go to this conference and then do training. It was a good reason, good call not to do both. But, just kind of that, we'll make it work. We'll make this happen for you. Just that was so cool. So I was appreciative of Dean for that. And then another highlight for me, well, one, of course, seeing Heather Wright. Always love seeing Heather. And then the night of the breakout sessions, I went to Rosie Liesveld's because hers was titled something along the lines of, using your strengths through adversity. And that night I actually did have a wig on. So I wore a wig my first day, which it did the trick. It was fine. And I always would wear that when I'd go out and train. But then the second day I just was like, whatever, and went bald. But, people in that room, there were about 20 of us. And, kind of went around the room and shared, have you gone through some adversity in your life? How have your talents showed up? And heard some tough things from people. But, it was a room of 20 and Jim, 3 of us, I was the one with breast cancer currently and 2 people that had gone through it and beat it. And those are the odds today. They're showing about 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. And, in that room, that sample size was 20-ish. And sure enough, 3 of us were sitting right there. So, got some hugs and got to kind of hear other people's stories. And I know the book that I'm working on, I really am going to focus it on cancer because that is my experience and that is my journey. But I do think, and Rosie's, written a fairly recent blog that I thought was awesome about, just saying her strengths did not leave her, after Kurt's passing. And, if anything, they got sharper. And I mean, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I thought she did a really great piece around that too. So
you had a great opportunity in the hospital to connect with another individual. And there's a great story behind this. I want you to take a second to just tell us about it.
Okay. Yeah. This is just kind of funny. So this is Alicia, and she works for the University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics. And that first Wednesday, last May, when I had my oncology appointment, it's actually downstairs from where we're standing. So I met with my oncologist, and she said, you're going to start chemo next Wednesday. It would have been Monday, but it's Memorial Day, so you'll start Wednesday. I debated fleeing the country that weekend. I was like, this is going to suck. But anyway, I walked up the stairs, and Alicia's actually sitting at a desk, kind of a, like a registration type counter desk. And she's sitting there, and I looked at her, and I peered down this hallway there behind me where it says infusion therapy. I mean, that's where chemotherapy is delivered. And I said to her, is this where they do chemo? Like, I was real nervous and timid. And she said, yes, ma'am. And I said, okay, I start next week. And I don't know what I thought she was going to say, like, get up and give me a hug or what, like, okay. And she said, all right, don't forget to get your parking validated on chemo days, free parking on chemo days. And I bet my jaw dropped. I mean, my eyes lit up like, okay. And then I wrote her this letter and said it was like in that moment, something kind of shifted a little bit for me. She did not specifically say, you got this, girl, you can do this, but that's what I felt. And I think that's super cool. And, I had 16 chemos. Alicia wasn't there for all, just there are 2 people working the front desk, but she would help me, just kind of get you checked in and then cut your armband off, your medical bracelet off when you left, give you free parking. And, it was kind of cool. It was super cool. The 16th day, I had a couple of Carlos, my sister and her husband from Kansas City. And, my husband, my parents were all there. And I went up to Alicia at the end and said, hey, we've actually got 2 cars here today. Is it possible? Could we get a second, free pass? And she's like, no, I'm sorry. We just do 1, but we can do a discount on the second one. I was like, okay, great. And as I was talking with her, I looked behind the desk, kind of peered behind it, and I saw this bell. It's just about this big, not real big, but if you've heard kind of that saying, ring the bell. And in my time of being there for chemo, Jim, I never heard anybody do it. They didn't have it like prominently on the wall or anything. And that's my son, Jay, and my husband, Kent, with me to ring the bell. But I said to Alicia, I said, hey, today's my last day of chemo. Could I ring that bell? And she said, oh, it's your last day. Of course, Tracy, you ring that bell. And then she wrote up a second free parking for our family. And she was like, I think I'm going to cry. You ring that bell, girl. And my son, Jay, like still to this day, he'll go, ring that bell, girl. It was so awesome. And my dad was there cheering. My mom was there. And my sister videotaped like just a 30-second deal of us ringing the bell. And you can hear Alicia in the background going, oh, girl, I'm going to cry. And my dad going, woohoo. And then at the end, my sister did say #strength. So it was just like a fun, cool family moment. And I've talked about this a couple times in my workshops with people. One was with like a group of about 85, a customer care team. People are on the phones in their job and not in a medical field. But I said, Alicia, to me, I bet combined over 5 months, I did not interface with her more than 10 minutes. I mean, it honestly was maybe 6 to 8 minutes. But she will forever be a part of my cancer journey or my cancer story. And I wrote her a letter, sent her Strengths Finder 2.0, and she's got these great talents and, things like adaptability and a ranger. And if you think of someone kind of at that front desk, and she's got harmony and empathy and connectedness. And, I just thought, I'm glad you showed up with your A game, I'm glad that you're bringing the best of you to work, because for you, just like I said, less than 10 minutes, for me, it's the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. And by other people showing up strong around me, my friends and my family and medical support team, that helped me feel strong during the time of my life when I've been physically the weakest.
Yeah. What a great story, in the sense that those little interactions really matter to you in these moments of crisis. And
Yes.
she has a completely different, not completely, but she has a different set of talents than you and is in a different situation. But I love the way you said, thank goodness she brought her A game to the job because you needed it in that moment.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
And she could have been disengaged. You talked about your engagement work and why engagement is so important.
Exactly.
Imagine if she was disengaged in what she was doing and not able to provide that support. Those 7 minutes, 6 or 7 minutes of support that she's giving you because she needs to, right? That's part of her talent set and what she does. How great that she has empathy and can feel that in her customers.
Yes.
And then she probably knew you were just scared to death.
No, she's like, get your parking validated.
That's so funny.
She was amazing. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, so someone's listening to this and they're like, but Tracy, I'm not you. And I'm not going to respond this way. What kind of advice are you giving people when we think about, I'm wired different than you, Ranger, Woo, Maximizer, we share that, communication activator. What kind of advice or how do you directing people? How are you coaching people going into these crises? What are some steps they should start thinking about as they're either in it or going into it?
Yeah. I mean, I think, Jim, you just nailed it. Of course, I wouldn't expect, maybe besides my strengths twin, whenever I find that person, thanks to Richard Sterry's great application. Richard and I actually have 4 of the 5. Nice. 4 of our 5 are the same. Yeah. But, unless there's somebody pretty darn close to me, I wouldn't expect that everyone would, do things the same. We don't expect that at work. We don't expect that when people sell. We don't expect it when they parent. So why would we each navigate cancer the exact same way? I think there's some advice out there in books that's pretty darn good. And, generic advice that's probably pretty darn good for anybody going through cancer. I mean, one example of that I've heard quite a few times or read is to bring another set of ears with you to the doctor, right? Or I've even heard if you go with your partner, then take a third person to take notes or that. That's pretty good. I'll call it generic advice. Like that's probably not a bad idea for anybody, regardless of your talent themes. But, in terms of facing a cancer diagnosis and being you through it, I think, there's so many different types of cancer, and I'm certainly not an MD or oncologist around it, but for me at least, and I think many others, you're not working on a full tank. Once you get that diagnosis, it's similar to, other big life events that people have gone through where you wake up that next morning and you're going, did that really happen? Yes, that is happening to us, and there are other things that you've gone through, loss of loved ones, death can bring that too, of going, is this my new reality now? And from that moment of being diagnosed, you're just not working with a full tank. So, I think a good strategy is using, what comes natural, what comes easy to you, and also being aware of how those things are going to help you and how they'll help you have more better days than not, or, even your horrible days maybe not be quite as bad. That's a competitive advantage. I've been actually, Jim, heard your voice a lot and Micah's and Kurt's with Theme Thursdays. I did a lot of walking this winter, just kind of at the local track, and just would walk around with my earbuds and would listen to these Theme Thursdays. And I've listened to them before, don't get me wrong, but I was trying to listen to them from a lens of, if I had activator, which I do not, it's 32, right? It's a lesser talent for me. I don't do much fast at all. And you can ask my high school basketball coach that. It's not doing much fast. But, if I was diagnosed with cancer and had activator, how might that influence how I take in information, how I bring people around me or not, how I walk through treatment, and then how I go through kind of this recovery or the space that I'm in now. And I know I'm like a freshman at it. It's just been a year. There are people that are 5, 10, 20 years out from this that are certainly more veteran in their experience. But I've been, doing research, listening to the webcasts, And I have been talking with cancer survivors. So I've got some great stories from people of going, oh, you did it like that. That's so cool. And then they're friends that have taken CliftonStrengths. Do I have time for a couple examples?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do one.
So Sarah, my cancer mentor or buddy, if you will, we had our first lunch in Iowa City when I was down for treatment and my husband was with me. And she's a high flyer in town. Let's say that. I mean, we both have won 20 under 40. So we kind of were familiar with each other there, but she presses hard. I mean, she's got 3 kids. She's a VP of marketing at a credit union and just does amazing work around the community as well. And so we're at lunch and I was like, Sarah, how did you go through all these treatments and, keep working and keep doing all this? And she said, well, cancer's not getting any of my PTO. And she kind of was feisty with it. And I thought, well. And, come to find out one of Sarah's dominant talent themes is competition. And it's even to the point, when I was doing those 12 rounds of Taxol, she took like a triple dose and did 4 rounds.
Oh.
That wasn't offered to me, so I didn't have to make that choice. But she said, whatever keeps me working, keeps me at work, so that's kind of, pretty intense. Somebody from her company called HR and said, I would like to donate some of my vacation time for Sarah as she goes through this. And HR had to say, she doesn't need any. She's not taking any. And I think, now that is pretty cool. And that's going to work for some, but that's not going to work for all.
Right.
And then just real quick, another person I've met that's doing great work, advocacy work in Washington, D.C. every year. She's got that belief and that purpose. And a quote she shared with me is, you have to get political if you want to save lives. And I thought, that's pretty powerful with the way she's approaching it with her belief and driving through her purpose there. So pretty cool stories. I'm hoping to connect with more people. I haven't talked with somebody with all 34 themes yet, but I'd like to kind of open myself up to the community, whether that's, grabbing me at the summit or dropping me an email. I am still kind of in that qualitative research, I guess you could say, phase of writing the book.
And if they wanted to contact you, what's the best way to do that via email? What's an address they can use?
Yep. It's Tracy, TRACI @followstrengths.com.
That's very good. Just send those over and start that dialogue with Tracy. Tracy, when we think about using you in the community, as folks are thinking about as a coach or the experience you've been through, what are you looking forward to? What kind of things do you like to do using the themes that you have? What would be the best way to use you going forward at speaking events or things like that? How would we do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the majority of my work right now is in organizations, work with some great, companies here locally in Iowa. I've done for-profit, non-for-profit, even worked with a few churches along the way. And like I said, done some career coaching. I do love career coaching folks in transition. But I think in terms of, today and what we're talking about, my cancer journey, I think there's a message to be shared. And I would like to open myself up to speaking engagements, whether that's in cancer organizations or breast cancer organizations, working with healthcare professionals. I have the top 5 themes of my oncologist and my surgeon and Alicia. I've got some good stories that I'm building and to share and really coaching people. Hey, your talents can be seen, felt, heard every day. So bring them. And that's the way that we all get better. So I think for me, Jim, I know you asked me once a couple months ago, like, am I going to be the cancer coach for people, right? If you said, if everyone needs a coach, everyone needs a cancer coach. And I'm not marketing that yet. I don't know if that's where it's going to go for me, but I think my first step is probably kind of in larger audiences or in kind of more of that workshop or keynote or conference breakout type format for now.
Yeah, as maximizers, you and I are always looking to find better ways to do things. I have kind of admired your approach that, this happened to you pretty young, and that gives you a whole bunch of time to influence and to get better and to make things better and to help people get better. My maximizer is not just me. I like to see other people get better as well. I think you probably do as well. And so while it's super unfortunate that it happened to you so young, it's super fortunate that you get all this time to really lead and influence and work with people here in the future who are going to go through something similar. And it's going to happen again. It happens every day, as you mentioned. And so what a great need. What a great story, Tracy. Thanks for coming on and spending some time here. Did I miss anything? Any other thoughts here towards the end? Did I miss anything that you wanted to say that you didn't get a chance to say?
No, I wasn't planning to say this, but you just said, I've got so much time, and that kind of, I know what you're saying. And then also on the other side, I feel like I don't. And that's tough, once you've had cancer and knowing just how fragile life is. And it's not that I didn't really appreciate life before. I did. I mean, I'm kind of a cheeseball. My dad and I danced to What a Wonderful World was our, first dance. So I've always appreciated life and been about the memories and the moments. I like taking pictures and, have a great group of family and friends. But I would say I'm living with a bit more urgency at this point, if that's fair. You hear cliches, things like life is fragile or life is short or things, and they're cliche. But then when you're sitting with cancer, you go, all of that is true. All of those things are true. Yes. So yes. And I hope to be able to do some good work around this and talk to more people, hear some more stories from other survivors of how they've survived with their strengths and leveraged their strengths through their walk with cancer. And I hope to be able to put out a great piece to share with the community and for anyone that's interested in it.
Awesome. We're going to see you at the summit here coming up.
You bet.
Awesome. Well, I'll look forward to seeing you, maybe getting a little more time with you this time. Big hug when we get there. Appreciate you being on here, and thanks for coming on. Hang tight for just 1 second. Let me close it up, and then we'll remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center. Just gallupstrengthcenter.com. Send us your questions or comments. That was hard for me to say just a second ago. If you want to be a guest blogger, we might even have some space. And Tracy, I think you're working on something right now. Maybe some of that can find its way over to the blog as well. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in the subject line so we know what it is. If you can also catch the recorded version of this, if you missed it or you want to hear it again, it's going to be available on our coaches blog. Head out to coaching.gallup.com. We mentioned several times about being a Gallup certified strengths coach. If you're interested in doing that, we have courses that are available to get you there. Head out to our site, courses.gallup.com. We're offering a discount during the summit, July 16th, 17th, and 18th. If you come and do training during the summit, Tracy, record number of people coming before and after the summit this year to get training in. So if you want to do that, CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. There's still a little bit of time to get in there if you want to do that. Don't forget, you can join us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach. We'll get you in that group, about 11,000 of us in there now, and a great place to go and share. I want to thank you for coming out today. Tracy, again, thanks for coming out. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.